Okay, time for some more illogic. Last time we went over our Week 2 match against Adam and his Adam's Pidgey Emporium. Please go check out that video first if you've not done so already, as we went over the Teambuilder in battle in which, spoiler alert, the Bouffalant snagged their first win of the season, a decisive 6-0 victory off the back of some strong Talonflame play, a bit of luck, and Gholdengo being Gholdengo, and that brings us up to a 1-1 record with a +5 differential. This time we've got a tough matchup against Michael and his Route 1 Birbs. Timestamps are in the description. In the rock, paper, scissors nature of our league, I was always the rock to Michael's scissors, or the scissors to his paper, or you get the metaphor. In Season 7, we swept him in a hacks-filled gym defense and offense, then cleaned his clock in the Season 8 quarters with Arctivish, then 3 more W's in Season 9, 2 in the regular season and 1 in the semis next to Elf Owls. We continued into Season 11 with a crucial dodge of Zen Headbutt leading to a victory there, but in the playoffs, Michael finally got his revenge, defeating the Bouffalant in the semifinals. There were some hacks, but if you don't think he's earned a win over us after some of the hacks we've inflicted on him, you're sorely mistaken. So is this the RPS system, is it broken now that he finally has that W? You're just hoping not, but look at this crazy team. Well, before we look at his team, I suppose I have some splaining to do. Yes, after only 2 weeks and without either of them coming, 2 new team members have already been exchanged out in favor of a familiar face and a brand new one. My final 2 picks in the draft, Doxbun and Cyclozar, have been replaced. Doxbun was really a pick of necessity, a base 95 Speedmon in an environment devoid of them, and with a bit of utility with Wish and high physical defense along a fire side of fire immunity there. In reality, it didn't really do too much in any matchup, and that was never more obvious than when preparing for Volcarona and seeing how much it struggled or could be taken advantage of against something I thought it would have a good matchup with. Maybe I'm just offensively minded, but I saw numerous ways Volcarona could take advantage of me, or if my opponent doubled out on the obvious switch, Doxbun was a sitting duck. I think we got a straight up upgrade here when Jolteon was acquired by the Lairon, because in exchange, Arcanine was made available. I don't really like repeating use of Mons within even a few seasons, let alone the very next one. But come on, this is just the upgrade. Arcanine's missing Wish and a resistance to Dark, but otherwise keeps the physical defense utility or the fire immunity here with Intimidate or Flash Fire, along with plenty more. Extreme Speed is so good, even stacked on top of all my other priority, but is still different in typing and by merit of being on a pretty bulky Mon. It's my second fire type, which may seem weird, but I haven't been inspired to bring fire coverage on Talonflame yet, so this may actually be something entirely new that's brought to the team, with higher offense stats on both sides too. Coverage also includes Close Combat, Wild Charge, Play Rough, Crunch, Iron Head, Outrage, Solar Beam in a pinch, Overheat, Fire Blast, Flamethrower, Dragon Pulse, even Hyper Voice for a cheeky throat spray set, and for support it has Will-O-Wisp for even more status, plus Morning Sun for recovery, maybe even Charm in a pinch. We're mostly going to go Boots, but Type Resist Berries are very interesting options, along with maybe Expert Belt, Choice Band, even Weakness Policy. And Terra options include Fire for more damage, Normal to boost that extreme speed, Fighting, Electric, Fairy for different defensive looks while gaining stab on a coverage option, or a defensive type like Grass or Steel to take advantage of Flash Fire. It's an all-rounder that can be customized to fit my style. You know what we brought last season, all we're missing are Toxic and Teleport, so I think we can make this work. My other pick that I dropped, Cyclozar, was also a bit of a necessity pick, in providing rapid spin support along with plenty of coverage options. I felt like the coverage options were just never strong enough, and with me feeling more and more comfortable with Talonflame, it felt like Cyclozar's niche was fading fast. It would be nice to have another fast U-turner, but it really didn't seem to do that much that Talonflame could not, or at least couldn't do it in 4 move slots. Enter something entirely different that still fulfills the rapid spin niche. Avalugg, meaning my second fastest member, becomes my slowest, but takes on a fully physically defensive profile too. That was one big part of my game I felt I was sorely lacking. It seems as though physical offense is king in this draft, but I was lacking that big physically defensive piece to combat that. Avalugg will often go with a boot set with Sturdy, and often runs Rapid Spin, Recover, Body Press, and a 4th move choice that usually includes Ice Offense, but what more do we need? No sugarcoating it. This is only going to come a couple of times, but the niche it provides is so interesting. In a match where I'm being threatened to be overwhelmed by physical offense, Avalugg can do so much more in carrying that load, not just because it's a table, and give it an entirely different look from what my team had before. The defense stat is huge. It has Rapid Spin. It's a fantastic defensive Terra candidate to help wall physical threats, and when it comes, it will do all that without fail. Seems good to me, and I've always wanted to try it out, so why not when physical offense shines, and I have one of the best checks to it in the league already in Gholdengo. Very happy with the pickup. Let's see if we can make it work. Okay, back to the Birbs for Week 3. Chien-Pao fell to the number 7 pick somehow, followed up in speed by Hawlucha, Iron Moth, Salamence, Lucario, Gardevoir, Florges, Serena, Magnezone, which sniped me in the middle of the draft, Ting-Lu dropped to round 3. What were we doing here? And Slowbro. Jeez, there are some extremes on this team, particularly in outrageous stats. Chien-Pao and Iron Moth highlight the offense, with Ting-Lu and Slowbro highlighting defense, and plenty of incredibly polarizing mons scattered throughout the rest. That might make it easy for us to decipher what's coming. Let's check it out. Lucario's first off the bat for me. Extreme Speed is strong, especially when paired with its crazy coverage, but I'm actually not too concerned. Aside from my fighting weaknesses, it's tough to say that it immediately threatens anything, especially when my top 3 picks all beat it quite handily. Gardevoir is somewhat similar, but more immediately threatening with a good read on a choice set. Scarf is of course very fast, and Specs hits very hard. But I do have plenty of answers to both. If I play well enough around it and figure out or call the set, we're in business. Florges is the defensive part of this too, but the stats and move pool don't seem to line up. A special tank, but weak to my strongest special stab and make it rain? No coverage to even touch that same mon, who happens to be my first round pick and just swept through last game? I don't think he wants to give me a free switch into Goldango. About the most threatening thing it's going to do is give Ting-Lu wishes, which is admittedly pretty scary, but if I can take advantage of Florges like I do so many similar mons, I don't think it's an issue. Hawlucha could potentially come. It was actually used early on in Scarlet Violet as a defogger that could get past Goldango thanks to Moldbreaker. But I have answers. That set really isn't that good and needs to get set up first to get anything going, not to mention he already will be prioritizing hazards already with the Ting-Lu, I assume, and even unburdened sets have to fear my abundant priority, which just got more potent with Arcanine as a good defensive check. If I'm checking all those other top mons, I'm already checking Hawlucha, so no thanks. Finally, Magnezone has a shot, being a decent defensive answer to a few of my mons while threatening them out, and taking advantage of that with Analytic. But I'm not sure it's worth. Magnet Pull traps nothing. I have a few real good answers to one move or another, so I think Magnezone only comes out ahead if he wins the prediction game, which is tough to do and maybe not a position he wants to be in. As opposed to other mons, which can do so much more with that time, such as Serena fulfilling a couple of super important roles. Its matchup isn't great, but it's a rapid spinner that can U-turn around and stop a Azumarill in its tracks, so I don't know if he has a choice but to bring it anyways. It matches up well against some of my top threats, outspeeds a few more mons than you might think. I think it kind of has to be there. Salamence is similar. An offensive set with stabs plus Earthquake with Moxie and a choice item or setup is quite threatening, but I can also easily see a defensive Intimidate set, which can also serve as a check to Azumarill, as well as Slithering and others. We'll go with the Beasts of Ruin next. Ting-Lu is probably his best spit-off answer to Goldango, and can devastate me a bit with EQ even unboosted. It sets hazards better than anyone, and can sit in front of at least a couple different mons with relative ease. Not a fun matchup. Chien-Pao struggles a little bit actually, but is still extremely likely to come thanks to being able to outspeed my whole team and hitting everything with lower defenses, not to mention his own priority and potential setup with Swords Dance. I have a couple good answers, but if he makes his way through those, I'm still toast. For the last two, Slowbro is maybe a more threatening wall with a similarly physical defensive profile to Ting-Lu, but with unpredictability in the move pool, including potential options for my top mons such as Fire Blast and Ice Beam. Include Future Sight for pivoting and the ability to invalidate a few of my top brings, and Slowbro will definitely be there. Finally, Iron Moth I find more threatening than Chien-Pao, especially with the possibility to Terra and or boost its speed. It's faster than most of my team, and although I have priority options, it also has tons of coverage and the ability to Terra to ignore most of what I'm doing. I'm worried about Ting-Lu and Slowbro pressuring my team until Iron Moth breaks a couple pieces that allow Chien-Pao to sweep. So how do we stop that? Probably not with Wo-Chen. What an abysmal matchup! This being so bad here elevates Slowbro to new heights, as aside from the walls, it fails to accomplish much. Chien-Pao takes advantage, Iron Moth doesn't need to Terra to Oko, Salamence doesn't care about what I do, Serena threatens U-turn, Magnezone doesn't care about what I do and can slow pivot, Hawlucha eats me alive, and the miscellaneous mons at the bottom destroy me too. Wo-Chen can beat the tanks, but nothing else. They aren't staying in, so unfortunately that's a no. Toxtricity rides the bench for the first time here too. I don't much feel like inviting in Ting-Lu, who eats even Boom Burst very well with a predictably spit-off set. Iron Moth doesn't take much. I can't outspeed the Chien-Pao easily and don't really threaten it. I see too much ground offense on his team, so I'm scared to bring Scarf Tox 3 times in a row to start the season. Gastrodon has a very tough time too. Its physically defensive sets, it's just not enough for me. Its stats just quite aren't there in the end. The Ruin Mons hit it too hard. Iron Moth will be bringing grass coverage, and what exactly am I doing to Slowbro or Serena? Nope, if I'm confident on these top 6, then Gastrodon has no place here. Avalugg will have to wait to make its debut. I thought about it a bit, but it felt as though I'd have to commit my Terra to it in order to beat something like Iron Moth, and even then Slowbro stops it cold. Colder than it already is, I mean. You get what I mean. It's a decent matchup into the rest of his top threats, but I didn't want to invite those two in for free too often, so no Ice Table. Finally, due to all that ground offense I mentioned before, I'm going to forgo any debuts for the new recruits here, as Arcanine just misses the cut again. Compared to Talonflame, Arcanine is weak to ground moves and hazards without defog, and also struggles to do any meaningful damage to the same targets Talonflame already struggles with. It exchanges a better Chien-Pao matchup for Talonflame having the better Iron Moth matchup too, so with that, Talonflame barely makes the cut for the third time in a row. That's okay though, because by the end of the team building process, I actually felt pretty good about where we ended up with the team. So we'll start with the last piece I put together in this Goldango set, which looks pretty standard I suppose. We can outspeed Chien-Pao with ease here, but is that really the goal? We can certainly hold on to the Scarf, but I suspect that Ting-Lu will be the primary switch into me here, hence why I want to aggressively click Trick to catch that Ting-Lu and limit the damage it can do while cutting down on the longevity. Past that, Stabs are doing a ton to the entire rest of his team with a cheeky surprise in Focus Blast, just in case I can get Ting-Lu chipped low and I think I can hold onto the Scarf, along with Terra fighting to make that a 2-hit KO on Ting-Lu, all while changing the typing effectively. Gone are the Sucker Punch, Crunch, Earthquake, and Flamethrower weaknesses, and instead a Dark Resist for Chien-Pao to outplay it in an entirely different way, though after seeing this exact same scenario play out similarly in the other league, it's tough to say he'll actually fall for it. Let's hop over to the other support for now then. Talonflame is straightforward yet again, with Brave Bird for coverage to hit his Frail Mons for approximate 2-hit KOs, this time with Defog to make it a near counter to Ting-Lu, plus Will-O-Wisp to keep that pressure up and at least get likely damage on the likely switch in here Slowbro while neutering anything else, plus of course the Taunt to help out a little bit there. We are foregoing Roost this time for longevity, but I don't think we necessarily need that this time compared to the couple of times that it's going to switch in, be effective, and outspeed effectively, and potentially defog when needed. Not too much to say here. I think we're going to be talking more so about the pressure we're applying this time. I only noticed this afterwards, but it seems like I have the best results against the Birbs when I can apply all this pressure, and that attitude and style cannot be better exemplified than with this Life Orb Swords Dance Lycanroc-Dusk, a very cool debut set. If I can force him out, say I threaten Accelerock against Iron Moth, we get up an SD. From there, what's going to stop us? Ting-Lu is 2-hit KO'd by Close Combat, Slowbro 2-hit KO'd by Crunch, Serena 2-hit KO'd by Close Combat, Iron Moth is close to an OHKO. Oh, all of those numbers are before the Swords Dance, so afterwards those are all one-hit KOs. Salamence could intimidate me, and Accelerock at +2 won't necessarily be OHKOing as I'm foregoing Stone Edge, plus Chien-Pao could actually pack Sucker Punch or Ice Shard to just ruin my day. But if those are down, this is actually a win con. With that said, Terra flying, which there's a mistake on here for that, I ended up going flying here, is real interesting. It gives me a chance to set up against something going for Earthquake, mainly a locked Ting-Lu, say we do get that choice item on it, or a Salamence, or even to give me a neutral look against something like Surf, Slowbro, and then once we get that SD up, it could just be GG. Finally, a match where I love Lycanroc's Calcs, a worthy set for its debut. Let's stay aggressive with the physical offense. Yeah, I can't believe I actually found another set that can 2-hit KO something like Ting-Lu and Slowbro on the physical side, but I did. It's a Choice Band Garchomp. Are you kidding me? Outspeed Salamence and blow him back. If the 6 that I think are coming do in fact come, Outrage is so free. Again, 2-hit KOing everything on his team, including Slowbro or Ting-Lu. Ideally, we're in on something that we threaten the OHKO on, let's say Iron Moth again, and he switches into a defensive answer. Just kidding, there are no defensive answers, pick a sack. This will obviously work better early than late, as later in the game he's likely to find sacks that can just absorb the Outrage, so this could even be the lead matchup for me. That's fine too. Imagine this versus Ting-Lu. He sets up hazards thinking we're doing the same, and then bam, threaten the 2-hit KO. You letting your Goldango answer go down? It's already at half. You gonna let something else go down too? That's best case scenario. Realistically, we're getting 1 KO, and then Chien-Pao is going to revenge us, as we simply don't have a way around that Ice Shard. However, the sooner we get Chien-Pao out, the better, as we need to figure out that set ASAP. I also have an amazing offensive check to it in this Choice Scarf Slitherwing, which does still have first impression in case of a Scarf on my opponent's side actually, and otherwise wants to click U-turn over and over to pressure the 4 bug weaknesses I think he may bring. Yeah, didn't realize that, did you? Bug offense is actually good here, say it isn't so. It gets even better if he does choose to Terra the Iron Moth into Grass, which he did week 1 and may wish to do again, and why I think Salamence is the most likely bring defensively. That and Iron Moth are maybe his best switch-ins to the bug offense, which is why I have the coverage I do too. Earthquake is going to hit that Iron Moth for the Oko and is a safe spam late game, but for Salamence, how do you like Terra Blast with Rock to hit that and Iron Moth, the two most likely switch-ins for me early? What a read that would be. He may be flexible with bringing them in early too, as he could be scared of the Lycanroc sweeping later, so imagine the shock when Terra Rock takes care of them. What a moment that could be, and that's why I really like this Scarf set here too. Finally, it's more boring, but it rounds out the aggressive nature of the team perfectly. Azumarill resists both of Chien-Pao's stabs, but how does it ever break through Slowbro? Well, +6 Play Rough does that pretty well. I outlined what I need for Lycanroc to sweep. How about Azumarill? Serena needs to be gone, and we need to find out what's up with the Salamence and maybe chip the Magnezone a little bit. Sounds like a lot? That covers literally all 11 members of his team. This could actually be very realistic, this matchup. Liquidation Oko, Salamence at +6 most of the time, definitely when followed by Aqua Jet, and the rest of them on significantly faster than may succumb to Aqua Jet. Ting-Lu requires Liquidation and Slowbro Play Rough, as we outspeed them naturally, unless we trick them a Scarf. We're good. This could very well be the win con this time, which is why we have another potentially odd Terra type to help. With Terra Steel, we could even set up in front of Serena or Iron Moth in a pinch, which is really funny when you think about that. That's the setup. I feel like this team came together very well, so let's see if that translates in-game too. No Serena, but Florges instead. So, no hazard removal from him, but I also didn't bring hazards this time, hoping he would load up on that. Maybe he's got some boots we're having him waste? Oh well, with no Serena, Azu and Lycanroc may have a better time trying to sweep, but Florges also makes a somewhat annoying check to Slithering as well as putting a stop to my Garchomp's Outrage. In that case, I guess I don't want to mindlessly spam Outrage this time. I'm going to need to take that or Salamence down now in order to start spamming a move with it. Instead, what do I lead with? Ting-Lu seems somewhat obvious, but I have the removal, so actually Chien-Pao seems pretty likely. It's his fastest mon, and if I lead with my potential hazard lead or something that needs to switch out, it's just a bad time. They're both weak to bug moves, so why don't we take Slithering for a stroll since it didn't even get to see that battlefield in its debut. That sounds like a plan. Good luck and have fun to Michael and the Birbs. I had a feeling it might be Chien-Pao. Okay, very nice. He's got to be worried about the first impression, so why don't we just safely click the U-turn button as we had expected we would be doing. Protect. I like that a lot from him. I don't think he needs all of his move slots here. That does, of course, mean that we're going to be forcing a switch. That's fine. He does scout for the first impression, which would let him follow up with a strong ice move there, of course. Or he would if we weren't Scarfed. So I think this is already coming in handy, maybe even a little bit more. I admit a little before the matchup, I almost overthought my way out of the Scarf. I am so glad I stuck with it. We're going to, of course, click U-turn again out of the Florges, which reveals itself to be very physically defensive, and into my obvious Florges check in Goldango. We also see no leftovers, which is kind of weird, but with nothing to wish up and nothing to hit me with, the switch out is obvious. Into what? I already said in the preview that his only real Spidef switch-in would be the Vessel of Ruin Ting-Lu. So do I read that and double? U-turn actually only does less than a third to it from Slitherwing. I like the ability to swap moves in this matchup. Let's go for the trick play, especially because this is still a good item to put onto the Florges. It is indeed the Ting-Lu, and we scarfed the Ting-Lu very early, really nice, and we got lefties back, which is just awesome. That could actually be big too in giving Goldango a whole new role in the matchup from what we initially had it with, consider with the scarf. That's a good start. So now what? I need to avoid the EQ no matter what, as I do just absolutely nothing back. Slithering is risky, but I could. No, I think we can just play it safe. I think I can just go to the Talonflame. I can burn or defog next turn too, potentially even taunt, which would be really funny. Rocks go up, that's fine, that's totally fine, and I don't think I need to prioritize defog quite yet, actually. We've got some time. Instead, I'm going to burn first, but that's just going to go into the very obvious switch-in that I mentioned beforehand in Slowbro. Oh, yeah, I can't touch this guy, can I? I think that's going to have to be fine, but what now? I don't really have a great switch-in to it, do I? Well, I don't think a fire move is coming out, and we do have lefties on Goldango now, so after too much deliberation, I think that could be it. I'm going to go Goldango and, ooh, Future Sight. That's not great at all. My Future Sight answer is already out. This would be a great way for him to get pressure on me now. Nothing to do but attack, I guess. With what? Does he stay in? No shot. He needs to pressure out my only Psychic Resist, so this won't do it if I stay in and Shadow Ball. So then, what can actually take a hit from me? Iron Moth is the biggest fear, isn't it? It resists two of my moves and threatens me out. Ting-Lu could come in too as a Shadow Ball and as General Spidef resist. That'd be fine, honestly. What's it doing to me right now? Not that I'm going to let Talonflame take a Future Sight. Well, do we have an in-between that can take a Future Sight and an EQ? Actually, I think we do. First, of course, we are just going to let out a move for the first turn. Click the Make a Rain button, get at least a little bit of chip. Yep, that's his bit of answer. We can confirm that. We do have the in-between here for the next turn, and that is going to be the Garchomp. It's tanky enough to take both, though we don't need to because it's just as spikes there, and also even resist the rocks as we come in, and we do all that on the spike setup. No skin off my nose. The Future Sight does take off about a third or so of my health, though. Now then, do we think he's going Florges? And even if he does, what's it going to do? Screw it. I'm going to go for Outrage this turn. I think he's going to not expect this to do anything to this. I'm just going to see if we can chunk this down without being able to recover too much. Outrage is out 54% to the tanky beast. That is so impressive. If you see the HP and defense stats on this mon, this is some seriously impressive damage. It's impressive that anything could do that much too with a physical attack that's neutral. Very awesome there. And with another layer of spikes down, we may have gotten the better of him here as soon as we go into Talonflame. Instead, of course, he's going to smartly go into the floor just to get immune Outrage and send me into a fit of confusion. This is actually a little concerning. We can't stay anymore. And so it's either going to be going into Talonflame or Goldango. It's a bit tough actually for Goldango to KO Ting-Lu if he's just trying to wish it back up. But maybe I can burn it if that happens. Even better, I don't need to take a turn to do that if I swap in on the resisted attack, which I do. And of course we're going to have the follow-up Defog on the follow-up Slowbro switch in, which I think means that we made a whole lot better progress here than he has. Though maybe if he hadn't prioritized the hazards in the first place, and maybe if he had just prioritized wishing up, that could have done it too even. Well, we're still actually in a bit of a pickle here. We are stuck with a Slowbro back out who actually doesn't have leftovers, by the way. I'm going to guess it's AV then to facilitate the Future Sight and coverage. So now what? I, of course, fear Future Sight, but probably serve as well as neutral coverage. Well, this may be bold, but I need to get some pressure on. Future Sight appears to be his psychic coverage, and there's no fire move coming out this turn, I think, unless he's anticipating Goldango, which was my switch in last time, but I think Future Sight might be likely, and if that's the case, I want to try and get the momentum going. So what if we made the play into a Slitherwing? I do want to try and keep some health for a possible Choice Band on that Sucker Punch from Chien-Pao, but that's fine. I told myself I'd try to play with a little more risk because this playstyle requires it. Let's go for it. We're going to eat Surf, the neutral move, which does do about a third. We take some damage, but honestly, not that much problem, and now we're really threatening. Slowbro, if it stays in, it's got some damage that's going to stick for now, so probably a swap into a Bug Resist. Spamming U-turn is what I do, so I think we're just going to go for it. He's going to go into Iron Moth. That makes some sense. And Booster Energy for special attack. This is best opportunity with Iron Moth, and I think I'll try to take advantage of that. So I absolutely need to take advantage of that by forcing it out with the Lycanroc as it finally makes its debut. But now what? Accelerock seems so obvious. So I have two options. Well, three really. The first option is to just Accelerock. It's actually not potentially, as far as possible, it doesn't KO. I assume this is going to be very offensive, actually. Lots of special attack and speed, probably to try and speed tie this. But if he's setting up, I can do my best to limit that here, and then threaten with other priority or something like Talonflame. Next option, Swords Dance up. This is the situation I described before, right? Where I force him out with Lycanroc and Swords Dance up. Well, this may not actually be the right time to do that. I said before that Booster Energy means he's more likely to stay in. I may not be threatening him enough, especially with a probable speed tie. Well, actually, I'm cheating speed here. I went Adamant, if you noticed in the Teambuilder, so even then. The last option is to switch out. Why? Grass coverage is very likely, especially could be paired with a Terra out of the rock weakness. If that's the case, I could take advantage of that with some other solid coverage from something like Talonflame. Or, if I'm really risky, I can go back into Slitherwing. And actually, I'm going to make that play. Go back into the Slitherwing, Terra Grass Iron Moth, and we eat up the Energy Ball. It does a lot of damage, actually. But, oh, thank goodness that worked. I'm even lower, and actually, I'm probably in range of Chien-Pao now, too. So, we may have to think about that later. But for now, we're golden. Even if he didn't Terra, I think we had an opportunity to Terra Rock on this turn. So, this felt like the best follow-up, especially because in this case, we get a free U-turn again. This feels like a big momentum shift this turn here. Floor just going to come in again to soak it up again. That's fine, as Goldango will threaten it again, and we don't need Talonflame out at this point. and we can threaten it with Iron Moth. Well, we can use that to threaten the Iron Moth later, especially because now we are actually hitting it super effectively. Imagine if Slowbro goes down. Actually, that Brave Bird's starting to look pretty nice. This guy's not standing, and to threaten Slowbro, I think we're going to go with the Shadow Ball. But just go back into Iron Moth. That's fine. We needed that chip on Iron Moth. That's great damage there, but it does also mean this Mon is out here again and actually threatens a KO. What's it going for? We did get rid of the booster energy, which is nice, but what is it going for? What is it going to be trying to accomplishing this turn and setting up for future turns? I don't think it can afford to do anything but use a fire move, so maybe Garchomp, but it outspeeds me. This is actually a bit of a problem, isn't it? I do have a fire resist that outspeeds. Maybe we can just try going into Talonflame now and threaten it out a little bit. Yeah, Fiery Dance comes off. We do resist. That is a special attack boost, though, too. That's pretty concerning. Oh, man. Actually, despite being a resist, did you see how much that did? +1, that's going to do over half. Is he willing to risk this going down? Probably not, but I think it's probably worth the risk. We are getting pretty low, but I think we're going to have to try to Brave Bird to make sure we aren't taken advantage of. Slowbro, of course. Yeah, that makes sense. Good switch, good switch. He is threatening Surf now as well, and it's going to do probably just way too much. Thanks to the lefties, I do feel good about Goldango, so I think we can go there. On the Surf, we're taking about a third, a little bit less. Recover up a little bit with lefties too, and I could start getting used to this cycle, actually. We're going to Shadow Ball like last time. It's pretty free, and he can't go into Iron Moth now, even if I can't go into Talonflame anymore. So for now, instead, it looks like his answer is going to have to be something else. Ting-Lu, you're getting low now. Is it time to sack the Ting-Lu? Yes, it is. Make It Rain would have required a double into Slowbro for very little reward, so it was an easy play. And finally, on turn 22, we get the first KO of the match. Where are we at, then? Chien-Pao and Salamence are full. Slowbro is too, but it's burned. And Florges and Iron Moth are pretty well chipped. The Moth has Terra'd, too. For me, Slitherwing has been chipped heavily, Garchomp is chipped, Talonflame's heavily chipped, but Azu, Lycanroc, and Goldango are all healthy. I will still count Goldango as very healthy thanks to the leftovers and the switches that it forces. Additionally, a curious switch in here actually this turn, it's going to be the Slowbro that comes in as the quote-unquote revenge option, so that's kind of interesting there, isn't it? I don't really, we are at -1 now. This thing is, what was it trying to do? It's possibly trying to come in and get some chip, maybe help get Goldango in range of his other Mons. I don't think there's any reason to not try to take advantage of this. I think we just go ahead and click the Shadow Ball button. Still does 60% at -1. We take the Surf 35%. Again, he still doesn't have lefties, but considering how much we did there, that's not AV either. What is this one? Is it Boots maybe? That makes a lot of sense. Helmet? That would make a lot of sense for later too. Either way, what are we looking at? One more Shadow Ball KOs. Is he willing to sack it to give me more lefties health too when he can heal up? No, but I decided to Shadow Ball anyways because I had liked the calc from Shadow Ball before on everything else. Not that they're the same at -1 because Iron Moth switches in and tanks the Shadow Ball with a whole 7% left. Well, now what? Actually, my switch-ins to this are limited. We both know I can't really stay in with Goldango, but can he afford to let me stay in at all either? Can he afford to let me? This is my best answer to Florges and Slowbro, outspeeding both and destroying them, especially with Florges unable to touch me. And with a Terra, I'm beating Chien-Pao too, actually. So I would love to hold on to this. So a fire move is possible, but in case I do stay in, he also can't click Poison, I think. Grass is the other option. Talonflame should be tempting for me here, but I also see a Mon that just isn't going to be particularly useful anymore. As we mentioned before when we get into the sack game, Garchomp does resist most everything coming my way, so it seems like the safe sack here that isn't even beating the Chien-Pao that he seems to be saving, isn't breaking Florges probably, and may not even beat Salamence depending. And in any case too, we can test to see if it's timid, which it will be too, as I'm going to take the Sludge Wave and then the Dazzling Gleam and go down 5-5. Okay, that makes sense, and what also makes sense is one more round with the Slitherwing, which can obviously revenge KO the Iron Moth, but with this as the best revenge option for him against Goldango, maybe he saves it. And actually he does, going into Florges for the third time to bring it down below 50%. And my switch in this time, Goldango is obvious, but actually I think there's an opportunity here. This may be a little risky with Salamence at full, and my other Chien-Pao answers are starting to diminish a bit too, but what about this? Azumarill. It's time. Belly drum up. What's Floor just going to do? He knows I'm threatening the KO, and as such, he does switch, thank goodness, into Iron Moth as a sack. And instead, we get to belly drum up. Oh no, friend. I have bad news for you. After a quick, easy Aqua Jet, it is 5-4. And now we have to hope this is enough. If Floor just had attacked me there, I don't know if I'd have enough even for a strong Sucker Punch from Chien-Pao, let alone Salamence. But now, we wait and see. If this doesn't work, I don't think Slithering has what it takes to clutch this out by itself, and may become a sack depending on the circumstances. I'm going to have to be really careful with the Terra to clutch through the Chien-Pao or Salamence, or maybe this will work now. He goes Slowbro now, which to me suggests a Rocky Helmet for Chip, but I have no choice. I've committed. Play rough, don't miss now. It doesn't. Another free KO, 5-3. Salamence finally comes out. No Intimidate, by the way. That's reassuring. And for my calcs, unless he's physically defensive, which why would he be without Intimidate, a Liquidation should easily grab the KO, and if not, Aqua Jet will, despite the resist, allowing me to use a 100% accurate move that functions the same way Play Rough would in KOing after taking a hit. Without Intimidate, I don't think he's physically tanky, and Choice Band could KO. So I think that's the bigger concern now. Moment of truth. Dual Wing Beat. That's only going to do about 50%, a slightly above average roll we found out, and Liquidation does KO back 5-2, and now it's time for him to try. That in particular was a huge relief, and it's now up to KOing and or playing around Chien-Pao. We may have some options in the back, but boy, wouldn't it be nice if we just finished it off now. This Azumarill has put in so much work, and thanks to it, I think we've got it in the bag one way or another. With the Weasel out, it's now a matter of a 5-0 or anything less than that. Protect can cut stall a turn as he finds out yet again that I do still have the same priority move that I had used earlier. That's fine. So he's going to have to Sucker Punch. And we live on 7 HP. Aqua Jet grabs the KO. And with only Floor just left, that's another easy KO. And that will secure the 5-0 win over the Route 1 Birbs. Azumarill! GG to Michael and the Birbs. Making it for week one's miss in a big way, though. I'm pretty confident we positioned ourselves pretty darn well overall anyways. Chatting afterwards, we were both in heavy agreement that the trick play was maybe the biggest W of those beginning turns. Not necessarily because of the scarf that was put on a Ting-Lu, that helped of course, but because of the leftovers acquired by Gholdengo. That turned the Florja switch-ins into a chance to recover health even, not to mention it gave Gholdengo the ability to tank Slowbro hits way better too. By tanking a hit and forcing it out, I just kept recovering health. We also agree that Ting-Lu probably should not have been prioritizing hazards the way it did. That defog from Talonflame was huge. A couple other fun things actually. The Slowbro was actually Terrain Extender with Psychic Terrain. Well, if you're worried about priority, that makes a ton of sense to help stop that. What a funny set that could have worked quite well considering how tough it was already to play around Future Sight. Very funny. Another big moment was of course the double switch out of Lycanroc back into Slithering. Michael expressed some disappointment in his play there. He had prepped himself to just click Dazzling Gleam in that situation and hold back on the Terra, but he overthought things himself and made the play that I was able to read. A lucky break for us, but would have been a crazy play from him to make in the first place with Lycanroc out there. No reason to feel down about that. Finally though, the MVP is obvious. I cannot understate the contributions from not only the Talonflame and the Gholdengo we've talked about, but definitely the Slithering too. That scarf was enormous. The ability to come in and threaten the revenge KO time and time again against 4 bug weaknesses was simply unreal in how useful it was. In a game that didn't end in a sweep, it seems obvious that we'd be chatting about how good that scarf U-turn was this game, but instead, of course, Azumarill with 5 KOs moves into a tie for the most in our conference at 7. The Gholdengo is also right behind that with 6 of its own now. That'll do it for me. While those numbers are pretty good, the more important one right now is that we are up to 2-1 with a +10 differential. A good sign that we have indeed bounced back. Week 4 sees us face the Cincinnati Incineroar, a team that has 6-0'd and gotten 6-0'd. So we actually don't have too much information about them, but the team does look very scary at the top and may just have a great matchup against us too. We'll see you then.